The campfire's gone cold, the cabins are empty, but sometimes when the wind moves just right, you can still hear them. The echoes of Camp Evergreen, where stories don't stay stories for long. 20 years ago, Camp Evergreen was the kind of place that shimmered with laughter, the kind of laughter that carried through the trees and made the lake sparkle just a little brighter. The camp had everything. A kind-hearted camp director who always found time for a story, a cheerful camp counselor who filled the day with adventures, and a warm, friendly chef who kept the mess hall smelling like pancakes and berry cobbler. It was, in every sense, perfectly ordinary until the stories began. One night, the campers gathered around the fire, roasting marshmallows and trading ghost tales. One of the younger Sims, trying to sound brave, told a chilling tale about a ghostly chef, a spirit who haunted old summer camps and tried to poison the children she once served. Everyone laughed nervously and rolled their eyes. But the next morning, their real chef was different. Her eyes seemed hollow, her movements slow, deliberate, and the once delicious meals were replaced by poor-quality pufferfish nigiri, a dish far too dangerous for a camp kitchen. The campers, uncertain and frightened, began hiding their food instead of eating. Something about her wasn't right, although no one could explain why. That night, as the fire crackled again, another story was told, this time about a possessed camp counselor, a man who used to guide campers through archery, diving, and kayaking, until one day he turned on them. The tale spoke of archery arrows that went astray and kayaks that sank without warning. The next day, their cheerful camp counselor was gone, replaced by someone cold and unrecognizable. Arrows missed their targets and splintered trees. A camper's kayak sprang a hole out of nowhere, forcing them to paddle desperately for shore. And one unlucky swimmer found themselves trapped in the pool, a fence appearing around the outside where none had been just before. Each day, another story. Each story somehow coming true. And then came the final tale, whispered in nervous giggles and flickering torchlight, the urban legend of Bloody Mary. They say if you chanted her name 3 times into a mirror by candlelight, she would appear. One brave or foolish camper decided to try. They stood before the bathroom mirror, candle in hand, and whispered her name. The next morning, the beloved camp director had vanished, and in their place stood someone else, a pale figure with an unblinking stare and eyes burning as red as dawn. The children didn't wait to learn her name. They simply ran. Camp Evergreen closed that night, the gates locked, the cabins left to decay, and no one dared return. Until now. 2 decades later, the camp has reopened, not for children, but for paranormal investigators and thrill seekers. The cabins have been left exactly as they were, rotting, decaying, yet the air still hums with something alive. Visitors test their courage by sleeping in Bloody Mary's bed, a challenge that few complete. Mystics gather in the old mess hall, summoning spirits at seance tables, surrounded by camp relics and burning candles. And every so often, someone new dares to tell a ghost story by the campfire, just to see if it might come true. No one has solved the mystery of Camp Evergreen. Yet. Will you? And that's where our story picks up. The camp has reopened and I've returned, not to rebuild it perfectly, but to uncover what's been left behind. Every cracked window, every decaying cabin, every flicker of candlelight might hold a clue as to what really happened here. So, grab a flashlight, keep your wits about you, and let's begin our investigation and take a look at our build. I have to warn you, this camp has definitely seen better days. But with spooky season upon us, I think that's part of the fun, right? I'm so excited to show you all the little details and surprising things hiding in every corner. So far, we've carved out the lake and shaped this big old hill. I knew that going into this, doing all of this terrain manipulation might make the build a little more complicated than keeping everything flat. But here, I decided it would work to make everything look larger and more ominous for our Sims when they arrive. Imagine standing at the bottom of this hill and looking up at this big, scary, what is going to be the mess hall. It's gonna be so spooky. But just practically as well, I don't know if you feel this way, but sometimes to me, it feels like manipulating the terrain on these larger lots. This is a 64 by 64 lot. Sometimes it just makes it easier to keep the place feeling full and dynamic. So that's why I decided to take the plunge and create a hill here. The cabins are in their place. We're going to have one decrepit cabin for what would have been the camp staff, one not so cozy cabin for the kids, and what is honestly going to be a horrifyingly gross bathroom hut. Just warning you in advance. And then, as I say, on the top of the hill is the messy mess hall, as I'm calling it, that doubles as a seance spot these days. Before we explore too much of Camp Evergreen, I would love to invite you all to go ahead and like this video and hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, the ghost might get up to even more tricks while you're gone. So what inspired this really spooky build? Well, recently I watched the original Friday the 13th movie for the very first time, the one from the 1980s. I think it was released in 1980. And with the new Adventure Awaits expansion pack coming out recently, this just seemed like the perfect opportunity to try and create something inspired by this movie. But I thought we could give it our own Sims twist. Have you seen the Friday the 13th movie? I don't want to say I didn't find the original scary because it's such a classic and I know how important it was in shaping the slasher genre, and of course, rightly so, people absolutely love it. That said, it was really interesting to see how slasher films have changed since the 1980s. They tend to be faster and louder and yes, a lot more graphic now. Whereas the original, it had more of a slower, suspenseful build up that really lets the tension grow. That being said, there was one moment near the end that truly, genuinely made me jump and got my heart racing. I won't say what it is because I don't want to spoil it for anyone who might watch, but honestly, it was such a scary moment and I've put a little nod to it in this build. So if you think you might know what it is, let me know in the comment section below. You'll see here I added these curved arching roofs to the cabins. I think they're called barrel roofs. And I love how they somehow feel both whimsical and a little bit bunker-like at the same time. I like to imagine how gorgeous they must have looked back in the day, gleaming in the sun, while the campers are running around doing activities below. I thought that they gave the cabins a sense of real character and history, like they've really been standing here through decades of stories. But we are going to make them look a little bit decrepit. We're going to put some holes in them, and we're going to put a mossy roof texture on them as well, so they look really run down. And then to tie it all together, I'm linking the cabins with platforms so that our Sims can wander around the camp without tumbling down the hill. But I love how they appear almost like fragile, connecting walkways holding the camp together. Later we're going to make them this lovely weathered grey colour, a little skeletal, a little ghostly perhaps, like the bones of something long forgotten. I love how it makes the whole place feel suspended between life and memory, like it's holding its breath. I found these really lovely weathered rocks from the Adventure Awaits debug, and I put them on this steep part of the hill here at the back of the lake. I love how they feel like they've just been here forever, watching everything that's happened on this hill. It made me think about how back in the day the campers might have used to dare each other to climb up here when the counselor wasn't looking. One challenge that I'm facing at the moment, I don't know if you can tell, but these stairs that lead from the deck to the ground beside the mess hall, I had so much trouble with these. I kept placing them down so that they were perfect, but they kept jumping up. I don't know if that's going to make sense, but maybe you can see the top step kept wanting to jut out so it wasn't flush with the rest of the deck. And it took me honestly probably far too long to realize why it was. It's because at some point I must have built a platform in the mess hall or raised it up one level, because the flooring in the mess hall is slightly higher than the flooring of the deck. So the stairs, I believe, are trying to jump to the level of the mess hall, and that's why they keep going out of sync with the deck. It was honestly so confusing for me, and you'll probably see throughout this build, I try and correct it many times before I figure out what's going wrong here. There's always these little quirks with the game, isn't there? There's always these little things that happen during a build and you're not quite sure why. And I must admit, I did have quite a few of them during this particular build. I think just because of the scale of it and the multiple levels. I imagine the mess hall would have been designed to have a beautiful glass floor to ceiling window, which back in the day would have captured the views perfectly. So I used some of the glass wallpaper, which we got in the new base game update earlier this year, along with these columns from the werewolf pack. And I'll show you a little later on how we made these look cracked and broken so the building looked run down instead of shiny and new. And here is the mess hall. This used to be the heart of the camp. At the back we have the kitchen, and I loved imagining all the campers bustling around, grabbing pancakes or spilling juice everywhere. The dining area has a new purpose now. This is where I imagine the seances happening. There's toilets that are going to be tucked nearby as well because, you know, you can't beat that convenience. And upstairs there's what I'm calling a rainy day room, because I was thinking in a real camp, it might be helpful to have some activities that you can do inside if it starts to rain or if it's really cold. So we're going to put a few different activities up here for things campers could have done when the weather wasn't quite cooperating. There was something really fun about this build, imagining how it was and how it's changed over the decades. You might see that I used some of the cracks that are meant for the walls. I used some of those cracks from the vampire pack on the glass because I really didn't want it to look too modern, too fresh, too new. I wanted it to look so run down. So there's also some cracks on the glass wallpaper as well. And later on I do add some grime effects and some holes in the ceiling and the deck, which are from the Life and Death pack, and some cracks in the walls, which are from the Vampire pack. This really lovely fireplace, this is from Adventure Awaits, and I found I don't know if it's meant to be a matching wallpaper, I think it is, but there's some stones also from the Adventure Awaits pack that I put behind the fireplace and made it look like a little bit of a chimney. I could just imagine how nice and cozy this was back in the day. Now at this point, I'm really starting to vibe with how it's all coming together. The decor, the wallpaper on the outside, and actually for most of the inside of the different cabins, that's from Island Living. I chose this fence from Werewolves because it looks kind of run down and the paint's flaking off a little bit. And then the windows, these are the new ones from the Adventure Awaits pack. We actually got quite a few new windows with this pack, which is really nice and really helpful for building all different kinds of campsites, even spooky ones like this. I should probably mention at this point, this was not a limited pack build in any way, shape or form. I probably leaned most heavily on Adventure Awaits and Werewolves. And if you want to build something like this yourself and you are in the market for a new pack at this time, Werewolves would definitely be the one I would recommend if you don't have it already, because there's so many brilliant rundown looking pieces in there that help pull something like this together. Saying that, the doors that I chose for the front of these cabins are also from the Werewolves pack. Aren't they brilliant? They just look so perfect for this build. So imagine yourself at Camp Evergreen for a moment. You step outside the decrepit mess hall, grateful for the open air. The grass crunches softly under your feet as you cross to what used to be the activity area, a place where laughter and playful screams have long since faded. Ahead, a line of archery targets still stands, half swallowed by moss. A soccer ball rolls across the field, although there's no wind to nudge it. From somewhere nearby, you think you hear the faint clink of horseshoes striking metal in the old pit. But when you look, it's empty. Nature has claimed the monkey bars in the rotting shed, And even though the campers have long gone, you can't shake the feeling that something still lingers here, watching, waiting, remembering. That's right, over to the right of the mess hall, I set up a little outdoor activity area. This is where the campers would have run off some energy between meals. I found this old creepy shed in the debug menu, which really looks like it's falling apart, and I thought we could imagine that this is where they would have kept games equipment back in the day, things that they would use for camp. I just used terrain manipulation and terrain paint to make it look really settled into the environment here. There's going to be space for horseshoe tossing, although back in the day, I like to imagine that it was used for axe throwing as well, just because it's got that slightly sinister edge we're going for in this camp. I like to imagine a few of these games didn't go exactly to plan. There's going to be picnic tables scattered around for snacks or crafts, and then an archery area where things might have gone a little sideways more than once, and a few bits of play equipment where the campers would have climbed and explored. And over time, of course, it's grown a little messy and overgrown. I decided to leave a lot of the old equipment and toys where they were. There's something quite spooky about that, I think, and I liked imagining the paranormal investigators or even the thrill seekers trying out the games the campers once played, hoping to stir up a little of that lingering energy. I don't know if you've ever watched Ghost Adventures or similar shows to that. They sometimes use items as conduits to interact with lingering spirits and recreate past activities in the hope of stirring up energy. So I thought maybe our Sims who visit in modern times might try and do that as well. As you can probably tell, I had so much fun coming up with the backstory for this build. Honestly, a lot of the joy for me isn't just in placing walls or furniture, although that is so much fun, but it's also about imagining who lived here, what stories they told, and how little moments could linger in this space. Thinking about the campers, their games, and their stories around the campfire, it really shaped how I designed everything in this camp. And once I had an idea of that, once I had a sense of the characters and the energy, it made decisions like where to put the mess hall, where to have the rainy day room, where they would do outdoor activities, where are we going to put the campfire. It made all those little decisions feel much easier. For example, I moved the campfire a few times because I wanted it to feel like the heart of the camp. It's the centerpiece of the story and where these magical occurrences happened. So I knew it was going to be really important to get this piece right. And once that is in place a little bit later, everything else around it started coming together really naturally. I'd love to hear what you think. Do you enjoy when I add storytelling to my Sims builds like this? Or do you prefer me to focus on more of the architecture and the layout? Here's a little fun fact about me. Back in the day, I attended a drama school in London and I went on to act for a few years after that. So I love storytelling. I really enjoy that element of my videos and my builds. But it would honestly be really helpful to me to know, do you get as much out of them as I do? Because I'm having a great time, but I don't want it to be just for me. I want it to be something that other people find fun as well. So let me know your thoughts. Have I got it about right in this video? Perhaps you enjoy it, but maybe it doesn't need to be quite so prominent. Or maybe you just think it's fabulous and you'd like more of it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm really enjoying blending story with building, and it's really inspiring to me to think about the next build where lore could play just as much of a role in the design itself. Around our little activity area, I made the decision to use debug fences. I think these ones are from the Adventure Awaits pack. And the reason I decided they would be so perfect here is because if you turn on the move object cheat, so you press Control, Shift, and C on your keyboard, and it brings up the little cheat bar, and then you type in bb.moveobjects space on, you can place these freely off the grid, and it gives you more control about exactly how you want it to look. The trouble with this is if you've manipulated the terrain and you have these nice hills, sometimes they look like they're floating. They don't naturally curve to the hill the way the normal fences do. You can get around this, I believe, if you have the tool mod, but I don't play with any mods in my game. I have thought about downloading the tool mod. Let me know if you use it and if you like it. But here I got around it with these wooden poles, also from the Adventure Awaits debug, and with grass and rocks. The grass is from the Horse Ranch expansion pack, and I love how it looks slightly dead. That was just so perfect for this build. I also had a debug hut and debug foliage over by the archery, but when I playtested this, I did end up having to move it because if you have anything between your archer and the archery targets, they can't play the game. So we had to pretend like maybe the paranormal investigators had cleared away all the rubble and the overgrowth down by the archery targets so that they could play the game and try and summon the spirits. The archery targets there from the new Adventure Awaits pack, and the archery skill is brand new with that pack as well. So the horseshoe pit, that's from the outdoor retreat pack. And as I said, I tried to imagine that the horseshoe toss was also an area where they could have competed in axe throwing competitions back in the day. There was something a little bit creepy and sinister about that. So I used these wooden poles around the horseshoe toss to suggest that maybe there used to be some kind of safety structure around it, but it's all decayed now and there's just a few pieces remaining. These lovely picnic tables are from Adventure Awaits, and I love how it looks like the paint is fading around the outside, making them look really old and rooted and like they've been here a long time. And then these handprints on here, they are lovely. It's lovely to think of the little campers personalizing these tables, but knowing what we know now about Camp Evergreen, there's also something quite spooky about these handprints as well. Here you can see I'm starting to map out the pool as a core feature of this camp. I've never actually been to a summer camp. I'm from the UK originally, and it's not really something that we had growing up. At least not like the summer camps you see in American movies. But that being said, I imagine that a pool would be really nice to have because it suggests that the campers had a full range of activities, not just land-based games. Over in this corner, I jumped quickly over to plan the graveyard. This was inspired by the Friday the 13th movie that I watched recently, because as they approach the camp, they have to drive past a cemetery. So it was a nod to those classic slasher camp vibes. And it also adds this nice Halloweeny or spooky charm. Maybe the little campers would dare each other to sneak out of their cabins and go there after dark. If you dare, imagine yourself back at Camp Evergreen for a moment. You step onto the cracked surface around the old pool, the air damp and heavy with the smell of mildew. The water lies dark and still, like it's holding its breath. The diving board stretches over the deep end, wobbling slightly, as if it could spring to life under the weight of a ghostly jump. You hesitate for a moment, swear you see ripples in the water, although nothing moves. Then, for an instant, you think you see a fence appearing along the pool edge, tall and rusted. You're certain it wasn't there before, or maybe it was just a trick of the light. And somewhere beneath the surface, something shifts. Not a fish, something bigger. Something that waited for the laughter, the games, the noise of the campers to fade, so it could claim the pool as its own. You take a careful step back, heart thudding. Maybe it's just the shadows playing tricks. Or maybe the rumors about the gator in the pool aren't entirely false. As you can probably tell, I had so much fun with the pool. It took quite a long time building this area, and I really enjoyed it. And even now, I still find it so funny that when you're building something run down and decrepit, it takes so much longer than if you're trying to build something nice and new. So I spent quite a while adding little details to this area to make it feel really gross. The terracotta trim we chose for the pool comes from the Love Struck pack. And then we filled it with the freshest of fresh green water, which is from Get Together. The tile around the outside of the pool is from City Living. It's actually linoleum. Linoleum, that's quite hard to say. But I like how it kind of looked cracked and worn down. It was perfect for this area. I chose these butterfly folding chairs, which are from the new Adventure Awaits pack. And then I paired them with these oceanic rustique dining tables from Cats and Dogs. Rustique spelled Rustique. You know, it's so funny when we think about packs that include rustic items, we might think first of maybe outdoor retreat or werewolves, but actually Cats and Dogs has some really nice weathered pieces as well. I think it's because that world of Brindleton Bay is set on the docks, so there's some really nice seafaring weathered pieces there too. This woven rope candle lamp you see I put down here, that's also from Adventure Awaits. I didn't want to include too much light out here. It's difficult, isn't it? Because you want to brighten it enough so you can play with it comfortably, but also you kind of want to keep it dark and eerie. So I put down this woven rope candle light here just to brighten up this space a little, and it does give quite a nice eerie glow. So I love that piece for this area. And then what you can see we're doing here, we added some algae or algae. What do you say, algae or algae, to the water to make it look like that area down there is a little bit stagnant and gross and swampy. And then also I had the idea to maybe put some grasses and some twigs over the lino tile to make it look like nature is starting to poke its way back through and claim this area back for itself. So sporadically throughout the pool area, I put these little tufty grasses around just to give the impression that no one's been back here to pull weeds for a very long time. And I was really pleased with this. This isn't something that I've done before as far as I can think on any of my builds. So it was a little bit of an experiment, but I think it worked quite well. The security fencing around the outside, that's from Businesses and Hobbies. And then I covered it almost completely in these brambles, which are from the Vampire pack. One interesting thing about this process of covering the security fencing with the brambles is that I had to do it on both sides. If I did it on just one side, when you turn the camera around, you can't see it through the fence. So I realized I would have to do it both on the inside and the outside to make it look really realistic. And there are quite a few different brambles from the Vampire pack, so we could get some nice variety in here and make it look not so uniform, make it look more organic and natural, like nature had risen up and was pulling these fences down bit by bit. I did toy with the idea that maybe we could use this pool rescue equipment, which is from the Get Together pack. Maybe we could try and make it look like it had fallen off the wall here and was sitting in amongst the rocks and the grasses. But then on looking at it more, I realized that it still had hooks on it to make it look like, because it's meant to be fastened to the wall. It's a wall sculpture. So it looked a bit funny just hovering like this. Again, maybe if you had the tool mod, you might be able to make this look more natural and you might be able to accomplish this better. But after playing around with it for a little while, I decided, unfortunately, it didn't quite work. At least I couldn't get it to quite work. So I put it on the fencing instead. I think sometimes just those little touches bring a build to life and make it really realistic. And then I chose these diving boards, which are also from the new Adventure Awaits pack. It made me laugh. These are called a rustic take on the classic diving board. And I was so pleased that we have these because you can see they do look a little bit grubby and worn, especially in this swatch that I've chosen here. They look gross and dirty, but also maybe we can imagine that the dirt on there is actually maybe some little footprints of some of the thrill seekers who maybe dared themselves to try out diving in this gross pool. Oh, that gives me shudders just thinking about it. And then perhaps my favorite touch in the pool, as I hinted to in the story I told you just a moment ago, I used one of these effects, which is from the base game. We have quite a few of them. We have some fireflies and we have some fish and we have some tadpoles and things like that you can add to ponds to make them seem more alive and realistic, and that there's a little animal ecosystem in there. Well, I have heard stories from people, particularly people in Florida, in swampy areas, where they have found alligators, bathing in their swimming pools. So I thought maybe that might be a fun touch here. So I put down this little effect. I know it looks quite strange right now because it's just a kind of grayish blue box. But when you're in live mode, that comes to life and it makes it look like there's an alligator who has taken up residence in the pool. I'll show you a little picture now so you can see what it looks like when we're in live mode. But I thought maybe we could imagine that the thrill seekers who have come here have seen this alligator and maybe they've spooked themselves and maybe they've told other people that there's a massive, abnormally large creature living in the pool of Camp Evergreen. And maybe they're just stories, but maybe they're real. Now what you can see I'm doing, I'm trying to establish where the entrance, the quote unquote entrance of the camp should be. And this was quite a hard thing for me to envisage because, as I say, being from the UK, I've never actually been to a summer camp myself. So imagining what you would see as you approach was a little bit tricky. And as I say, I've seen American films about summer camp. I mean, The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan is one of my favorite movies of all time, but it was still hard for me to picture how you'd arrive at the camp and get that classic camp feeling. So I would love to know, have you been to summer camp as a child? And if so, I'd love for you to share your favorite camp memories below. It's always fun to hear about other people's experiences. Hopefully none of your stories include ghostly chefs or Bloody Mary. I was trying to think about what trees and bushes to use because I didn't want everything to look completely dead since we're building in quite a lush part of the world of Gibby Point. This is the new world that we got with the Adventure Awaits expansion pack, and it's very lush and it's very green, so I wanted to make sure it looked tied in to its environment, but then also maybe like something here was a little bit wrong, almost like it's under a bit of a spell and everything's just slightly decaying. So in the end, I chose these trees which are from Outdoor Retreat, and I sized some of them up and sized some of them down and put them on different angles to give them some variety. But I really like these because they match the landscape, but they also look a little bit shabby. So it was that perfect balance of what I was going for here. And then I also included some palms, which are from the Adventure Awaits debug, just to blend it all together with the world, because there are a few of these trees around in the environment as well. But then I got a bit distracted from this because I came up with what I thought was going to be a really good idea. So let me know what you think about this. I got distracted and I went back to the entrance and I started adding rips to the banner, and how I did this was I took these pieces which are from the vampire pack. I had the move objects cheat turned on like we were saying earlier with Control Shift and C and then typing bb.moveobjects space on into the little bar that comes up and then hitting enter. And then I was able to use the 9 and the 0 key to move these rips up and down freely to get them exactly where I wanted them on the banner. I think I also had to size them down because they were a little bit too big and they were spilling off the side. And I did that by using the bracket key on my keyboard. So the left bracket makes the item smaller and the right bracket makes the item bigger. So once I had it at the size I wanted and the shape I wanted, I manipulated the banner to fit that perfectly. I haven't ever done anything quite like this before, and it is very subtle, but let me know if you think it works. It just makes everything feel a little bit older and a little bit more abandoned and a little bit more decrepit. Honestly, I don't think I've ever used the word decrepit so much as I have since I started this particular speed build. And then I was looking at these warning signs for Greg. Greg is an angry werewolf who lives in Moonwood Mill. And I was thinking, ooh, maybe along with our ghosts and our possessed camp counselors and our creepy gator that lives in the pool, maybe there's other legends about this place, and maybe some of the campers think they've seen a Bigfoot-like creature or some kind of cryptid like a big dog. And they were so scared they decided to help others by putting down these warning signs outside the entrance: beware, turn back, werewolf ahead. I pulled lots of fun things for the build out of the catalogue just to spark ideas. You'll see a lot of trash, and a lot of those pieces are from the Eco Lifestyle pack. That came in really handy here. There are also some creepy dolls, some bones, some random looking things that you might not want to get too close to. Some of these items got stuck. I don't know if this has ever happened to you or if you have found a way around this. This sometimes does happen to me, and it seems to happen when I've pulled a lot of items out in quick succession and just put them down, which is a little bit annoying because I do that to try and make it easier for myself, and sometimes it just ends up making it harder. What I ended up doing was hiding these items in the overgrown foliage as a creepy little surprise for any unfortunate sim who stumbles upon them. So in this case, it was kind of like a blessing in disguise. I scattered the trash around the build, especially around the entrance and the outdoor activity area, to give the camp that abandoned, overrun, slightly gross feel. Around the campfire, I added the plates and the cooking equipment, like someone had been interrupted mid-meal, almost like something spooked them away. There were also even a few cow plant bones mixed in. I know that's quite dark, and it's definitely not something I personally would want to go near or touch. But it does spark the idea of what kind of things could have been going on around this campfire. I put down this wishing well, which is from the Get Famous pack, because there's something kind of spooky about a wishing well. A lot of horror films have one, and the idea of falling into one and getting stuck is so scary for me. And then I propped up against it this creepy rabbit toy. Her name is Nibbles the Grimturn, and Nibbles is from the Life and Death expansion pack. In amongst the trash in the outdoor recreation area, I put down a soccer ball because to me, it was kind of fun to imagine the Sims playing with things from the trash. So I thought it'd be nice to have this soccer ball as something that they could interact with. Maybe our thrill seekers and our troublemakers will have a little kickabout. And honestly, I just tried to make it so that there was so much to do here. And I would love to know, which ghostly camper activity would you dare to try? Would it be ghost storytelling around the fire, or would it be sneaking into the pool at night, or maybe exploring the graveyard? Let me know in the comment section, what would you dare to try? And speaking of camp activities, you might have noticed that my kayaks sank a little in the lake, which honestly I loved. I just thought it was so perfect. But as a little disclaimer, when I was playtesting this, I realized that they weren't actually functional, which is a bit of a shame. In order to be functional, they need to either be in a pool or they need to be in a lake in the world, such as the ones on the lots that are half on the land, half on the lake at Gibby Point. So these kayaks, I'm afraid to say, are purely decorative. I didn't realize that when I was making this build, but I decided to leave them there as a nod to the story, things that have happened in the past, and as a decorative item, because I think when they're half sunk like that, there's something really creepy about them. Now we're moving on to the first of the cabins. This would have been the staff cabin. And if I could encourage you to imagine with me for a moment, you find yourself standing inside this first cabin. The air is thick with dust and memory, and 3 narrow beds line the far wall, their blankets still tucked in as if someone might return at any moment. The first bed, they say, belonged to the camp chef. Some nights, people swear they still hear pots clattering in the kitchen, even though the stove has been cold for decades. The second bed was the camp counselor's. His pillow is still indented, like he's just stepped out for a moment and never came back. And the last bed, that one's hers. Bloody Mary. No one's brave enough to sleep there. The mirror on the wall cracks a little more each year, though no one ever touches it. Your friends dare you to spend the night. No lights, no phone, no backing out. So, which bed do you choose? The chef's, the counselor's, or Bloody Mary's herself? Choose carefully, because this cabin remembers everyone who's ever tried. This cabin's going to have beds which are from the werewolf pack, and it's going to have its own private bathroom. I wasn't really sure how camps work with bathroom. I noticed in Friday the 13th, the campers seem to have a separate bathroom cabin, so I did that for the kids. But I thought for the staff, it might be quite nice if they had their own area away from the children, their own private bathroom, if you will. So that's what I did. The beds are from the werewolf pack. 3 beds for the 3 staff members. We've got a base game desk in here and a chair from businesses and hobbies. Really, these are just decorative. I put the chair at an angle like this so you can't sit on it and use the desk unless you wanted to move it yourself, of course. But I thought it was just quite gross how the chair had been pushed out, and underneath the desk there was all these different trash bags and trash items. It just looked really creepy to me. There's all kinds of clutter. There's some sports equipment clutter, which is from the base game, and some piles of laundry from the base game. I thought maybe because we were imagining that our camp counselor, our chef, and our camp director were replaced by evil, sinister spirits. Maybe the laundry on the floor was kind of a bit of an eerie nod to the fact that they disappeared and their clothes were just left behind. That was one idea I had. Or if we find we don't like that idea, maybe they were just a bit messy and maybe they just abandoned their clothes where they stood and no one ever dared come back to clear them up or take them away. I put up some rather sweet and innocent looking wall art, which is from the Adventure Awaits pack. It would have been quite bright and cheerful and lovely when it was first put up on the walls of this cabin, but now there's just something quite eerie about it, like memories from long ago. In the bathroom, the toilet and the toilet paper, they're both base game. We do have the new Adventure Awaits shower in here. I thought that fit very well with the cabin-y vibes. This rather vile looking cabinet is from City Living. It's just perfectly shabby for this build, and then the sink is also base game. For our storytelling purposes, there is a cracked mirror from the Werewolves pack, so I put that in here as well to tell the story about how Bloody Mary is summoned through the mirror. And again, I do use this several times throughout the build because it's just so good. I put a pile of books from the Book Nook pack on the desk. I thought maybe at some point during the last 20 years, someone maybe snuck into the camp to try and solve the mysteries, and they had all these books about different cryptids and paranormal happenings and maybe some spells or something like that. And they were going to try and make contact with the different entities here using these materials, but something tells me they left in a hurry and they left their books behind on the desk. This second cabin, this would have been the campus cabin. It's going to sleep 6 Sims in bunk beds. And one of my favorite eerie touches in this cabin is all of the personal items they left behind. Toys, clothes, trinkets, their little suitcases. It really tells the story that everyone left so suddenly and no one ever dared come back for their things. It's that same eerie feeling that you get in real life abandoned places. I don't know if you've ever seen photos of deserted amusement parks or old schools or ghost towns. There's something so surreal about those spaces frozen in time where people's lives are hinted at but have now gone. And I think that's why these cabins feel so haunting. The belongings make the camp feel alive even though it's empty. Imagine you had to abandon a place quickly. What's the one thing that you'd sneak back for? And in this cabin, the fact that we did a separate bathroom was so nice because it just gave us so much more room for these little extra touches. The bunk beds are from the new Adventure Awaits pack, and I did them in lots of different colors to kind of give the feeling that once upon a time here, everything was bright and cheerful and fun and really child friendly. At the end of these bunk beds, I used these chairs which are from the Werewolves pack. Again, these are so perfect because they come in these nice bright colors, but they look really faded, like the paint is peeling off or it's been worn away over time. There's a lot of kids clutter in here, which is from Parenthood. And of course, we had to have the imaginary friends from Adventure Awaits because let's be honest, I know many of us find those pretty creepy. The dresses are also from Adventure Awaits. And these lovely little shabby nightstands are from the base game. Up on this first bed nearest the door, I placed Penny Pendragon. She's from Enchanted by Nature, and I used the 9 key to lift her up and put her on the bed so it looked like maybe the child who was sleeping there left their favorite toy behind. And then this little dollhouse, this is also from Enchanted by Nature. I sized this one down using the bracket key because a lot of our dollhouses in The Sims 4 are really huge. That being said, we can size them down and they are still functional because the Sims, when they're playing with them, they just hold their little toys in front of the house. They don't actually put them inside. They just kind of hold them in front and move them around like they're telling their little story with the dolls. So that's quite a nice little tip. If you want a doll's house but you don't really have space for it, you can still maybe fit it in this way by sizing it down and have it functional. You'll see I did put down some sleeping bags in here because I thought some people, they might come and they might want to dare themselves to stay in the cabin, but maybe sleeping in the kids' old beds is just too gross. So they brought their own sleeping bag and slept on the floor, which is still pretty gross, but maybe for some people that's a nicer thought. But unfortunately, I thought our Sims would be able to just walk over them to get through the cabin, but they can't. They couldn't get around them. So I end up moving the sleeping bags and I put them out on the deck. So maybe instead of sleeping in the cabin, some Sims decide to sleep under the stars. That to me seems a lot more appealing. So if you play here, the sleeping bags are still here. They're just not in the cabin anymore, unfortunately. One of my favorite eerie touches is the shoes. I put down shoes from Dream Home Decorator and the Grange Mudroom Pack and lined them up by the door. I don't know about you, but for me, there's just something so eerie about people's abandoned shoes. It's just such a personal item. That just gives me chills. And then above the shoes, I put down this corkboard, which is for base game, and these ribbons from high school years because I thought that told the story of how before the ghost stories came to life, everything was just so fun at the camp. They were taking part in all the activities. They were having little camp competitions. Everything was going so well. And now, sadly, these ribbons are just relics of a time long past. And then out on this back deck, I thought this might have been back in the day a nice hangout area for our little campers. So I put down 3 of these chairs from Outdoor Retreat. I really love these because they have so much personality. You can almost imagine the personality of each Sim who these chairs would have belonged to. But this was just a little bit too nice and cheerful. I wanted to make it a bit more creepy. So using the 9 key, I lifted up this little toy. His name is Henry Chompsalot Jr. He's from the Werewolf Pack, and in his description it says, "Look at this goofy little guy. He's just a little dude, a tiny friend. He's just kind of there doing his best, and he promises that despite his name, he won't chomp anyone." Quite the opposite, actually. His sturdy rope limbs are perfect for tantrum-prone teething tots, reinforced specifically for mini werewolf fangs. So I thought maybe that was just a nice nod to our lore here. Maybe our werewolf who visits this lot, he's been here since he was just a little werewolf child, a werechild, and this used to be his little toy he would chew when he was teething. Okay, so this bathroom needs to come with a warning label. You can almost hear it saying, "Don't come in here." And honestly, that's fair enough. This bathroom, it's a crime scene between mold and mildew. So let's proceed at our own peril. I tried quite a few different layouts for this next part because honestly, I wasn't quite sure what a real camp bathroom gone wrong would look like. You're probably getting by now that this was probably my biggest challenge of building a summer camp, the fact that I've never actually been to one. I have been in some questionable public restrooms before, so I was drawing on that experience, but then taking it to the max. So the walls are going to be all dirty and cracked. The floor's going to be covered with trash to really sell the idea that no one's been brave enough to clean this place in decades. And I think, honestly, in the end, there's this really awful charm to it. Like, it's so far past saving that it's circled back around to being atmospheric. So when we're all done, let me know how close you think I got to a real abandoned camp bathroom because I'm starting to think that this one needs its own horror movie. Interesting little problem I had when I play tested this. The way I have it now, Sims couldn't get in the bathroom door, and it took me way too long to figure out why. And what I finally realized is it was because the way I had these roofs with these large eaves overhanging, it was blocking the door so our Sims couldn't get in. So what I had to do was I had to bump out the platform at the back, move it around so the door can be on the back end of the bathroom cabin so Sims could get in where there wasn't an overhang of the roof. And then I just shuffled the sinks around so they're against the wall where the door is currently. And that still worked absolutely fine. It was just one of these little things that really confused me when I was playtesting. The sinks that we chose are from Laundry Day, and the mirrors that are above them are from Cats and Dogs. And I thought it might be a good idea if we added some lockers. I don't know if that would be something that would really be there. And maybe it's a little bit unnecessary because, they have their camp just down the steps, their cabin rather, just down the steps where they could keep a lot of their things. But I thought maybe it might be helpful if they had somewhere where they could store their toothbrush and their showering lotions, their shampoos and things like that. So I included these lockers as something that might have been helpful for our campers back in the day. A lot of the grime effects that you'll see I'm putting on the wall, they're from For Rent. This tile is from Base Game, but as I say, it was just too nice. So we're going to cover it with grime and mold and really horrible things. And the toilet cubicles, those are from Discover University. And again, I was able to use some of the grime effects by using the 9 key to raise them up and then shuffle them onto the walls. And I was really pleased with how good this looked in the end. I also put down this particular trash pile in here. It looks like an old mattress, but I was thinking maybe at some point someone came here and tried to sleep in this dirty bathroom on this horrendous mattress. All right, imagine yourself back at Camp Evergreen just for a moment. You've just escaped the decrepit bathroom and gulp in a breath of fresh air. The forest smells damp and wild, like rain-soaked pine and rust. You pass through the old camper's cabin, careful to not disturb the creepy dolls sitting forlornly beside the bunks. Their eyes catch the light, glassy and pleading, almost as if they're waiting for their children to return and make them real. Out on the deck, the boards creep beneath your feet. You step over a hole in the wood and start towards the mess hall. The stairs groan under your weight. And then you see it. Huge footprints pressed into the warped floorboards. Too large for any human, too fresh to be old. They begin halfway across the deck, circle manically, and vanish into thin air. And there, right beside them, deep scratches along the floor. Maybe those whispers about something else living near Camp Evergreen weren't just campfire stories after all. So as you might have guessed, I've added another little moment to our werewolf lore up here. I used those muddy footprints we have from the Cats and Dogs pack, and I sized them up using the bracket key to make them absolutely huge, and I placed them manically around this upper deck. And at first I was concerned because they just start and end nowhere, but maybe that adds to the creepiness and the mystery of it as well. And then also what I'm going to do in a little bit is I'm going to put down those scratches that we have from the werewolf pack, those claw marks, just for a little extra trepidation as if we don't have enough going on here already. The other thing you might have seen me do here whilst I was talking was I went into the gallery to find completed graffiti murals because I had the idea that maybe some people had come up here in the past and they had taken the opportunity to do some graffiti art. So if you go into the gallery, and I think I found a few by typing mural, and then I found a few others by typing graffiti. You can get completed graffiti art for your build, so your Sims don't have to go to the lot and do it themselves, unless you want them to, of course. But doing it this way, the graffiti will already be there when you arrive. So we're moving on to the kitchen, and this was one of the spaces where I was really inspired by the Friday the 13th movie, because in the movie they have a kitchen and then just off it there's a dark and creepy pantry, and I was so sure that at some point the killer was going to jump out of there and they were going to get someone, but it never happened. And it was really interesting seeing a movie that existed before a lot of the formula or cliche that we expect so much now in modern day horror slasher films, before those existed. So I included a little pantry in this kitchen as a nod to a moment that really stood out to me from the Friday the 13th movie. The rundown stove and the shabby cabinets, they're both from City Living. Again, so perfect for this space. They just look really gross. And another thing we have in here that I really, really like, I found this absolutely wonderful pile of trash that included a refrigerator knocked down. And I just thought, how perfect for our kitchen is this? So we've got that in the corner, but then I also did want this kitchen to be functional. So when our guests are here, they can comfortably stay here for several days and they can cook meals and things like that. So we have a mini fridge and we have a microwave. That's from the base game. The light is from Laundry Day and the hood is from base game. And then I just cluttered it up with as many creepy things as I could. I also found these sacks of flour and sugar from the debug menu and I put them in as well because I thought, well, it was a camp. They would have needed huge quantities of ingredients. So that just kind of made sense to me. I put those in the pantry as well. One moment that I'm really proud of, we have these knives on the side cabinet here, and I found a loose knife for debug and I put it down on the cabinet beside this knife rack. And it raises the question, I thought, why is that knife pulled out of the knife rack? Who took it out? What did they do with it? And why did they leave it there? In the pantry, I included more cabinets from City Living, and I am very pleased to report that this kitchen is fully functional. I didn't have to change anything from this to get it to work, so I was really pleased about that. This larger area downstairs, I imagine that this is where the campers would have ate their meals. So we have two of these tables which are from Get Together, and then the chairs from Werewolf. Again, these are the same ones that we had in the campers cabin. They were just too perfect to pass up. And what I did was I tried to arrange them in such a way that it made it look like they had just been pushed to the side and some of the chairs had been taken from the table and pulled over to this little seance table that we have in the middle. I was able to include some cracks and some scuffs on the vending machines as well. I have never ever got so creative with the cracks and the scuffs from the Vampires pack as I have with this build. I put them on almost everything that I could, and they just help the vending machines look a bit more in keeping with the overall environment, rather than something brand new and shiny that has just been put down here recently by me. I did have to shuffle these tables around a little bit to make everything functional because when I first tried to play here, the Sims couldn't get through to the kitchen and the bathroom. So I just had to shuffle things around a little bit just to give them a bit more of an open walkway. But apart from that, this space was absolutely fine. The seance table and the crystal ball are both from the paranormal pack, along with all the associated skills that we were talking about, the medium skill, things like that. And then I tried to make it look like some paranormal investigators had really been doing some work here. So on the table on the left, I tried to include pieces that looked like they'd been doing some research there. So we have some books, we have a stationery pile from Werewolves, we have several letters. Some of the letters are from the Grange Mudroom kit, and some of them are from City Living. I thought, wouldn't it be creepy if we imagined that the campers had been writing letters home, telling their parents that something strange was going on at camp and they wanted to come back? But the letters had never been sent because things escalated before they got the opportunity to get them in the mail. So this table, this is kind of the research table. And then the table on the right, as we're looking at it now, this is a table where maybe they put some relics or some items that they were using to try and summon different spirits. So we have this creepy cuckoo skull from Vampires. We have the helping hands from Paranormal. There's some tarot cards here. There's the death flower. We have a skull on this table. Just anything creepy that I could find, I put it down here. And then we also have so many candles. so many candles. These are all from the Paranormal pack. And again, I made some of them bigger, some of them smaller to add some variety and make it look not so uniform. Over here, we have a couple of toilets. I just thought, well, you can't beat that convenience. I think there would have definitely been toilets in this building. So the cleaning supplies there, those are from Horse Ranch. The sink is from Laundry Day. The little mirrors above the sink, those are from Businesses and Hobbies. And then in the bathroom, we have these base game toilets. And then just so many cobwebs, just an absolutely crazy amount of cobwebs in here as well. In one of them, I put down some hay. I don't know, I thought maybe someone was keeping some animals or something like that in here at some time. Or maybe they had made a little hay bed for themselves in here at one time. And then up here, this is what I'm calling the rainy day room, a place where our little campers could hang out if it got too cold or it got too damp and they couldn't do their outdoor activities. And I was really pleased with how retro we were able to make it look up here. And not just retro, but run down as well. And then we have this nostalgic entertainment system, which is new with the Adventure Awaits pack. It's kind of like an old video game console. And I just thought, oh my goodness, that is brilliant, because that is something that they might have had 20 odd years ago. I never played with these gaming consoles, so I'm not sure exactly how old they are, but maybe it's something that is from the era that our campers were originally staying here. So in that vein, I also put down an old looking TV, and then this clutter as well. There's some CDs and things like that in here, and this is from high school years. So I was just trying to create a really nostalgic feel to this space. The couch and the lamp and the rugs, those are all from the Werewolves pack, and those are delightfully shabby and they work so well in here. Over on the other side, we have yet more trash. We also have a table tennis table, and I put down these little table tennis rackets. I thought maybe it might look like someone had abandoned it mid-game. We have this, what they're calling an anti-mural on the wall. This is from the Werewolves pack. It's another creepy little graffiti moment that makes us wonder, ooh, who else has passed through here recently? I really loved the idea of adding a little extra mystery and playfulness to the camp. I wanted anyone downloading the lot to automatically have a werewolf on site, so it feels like the camp's alive and a little bit unpredictable, like the stories themselves could come to life while you explore. I would love to hear your ideas. Drop a comment and tell me, what's the most fun or the craziest getaway that you've planned? Or what would you love to plan for your Sims? Please let me know in the comment section below. I put down this cardboard. This is actually a dance floor, and it's from Get Together, and I thought this might be where our thrill seekers might come and dance. There's also a bookshelf where we might imagine our campers could come and have a quiet moment with a book, or maybe they had some board games and things like that on here in the past. There's some more of that really gross looking newspaper from Cats and Dogs. This one has an ominous looking stain on it. And then above there, I put down some children's art because I thought maybe on a rainy day they might have done art activities in this space. Maybe the table tennis table is able to become an art table, so they did some arts and crafts, and those pieces are up on the wall here. If you were stuck inside this rainy day room during a storm at camp, what would you do to pass the time? Would you play music or video games or table tennis? Or maybe you would take the opportunity to tell more ghost stories. You wander back toward the edge of camp, where the trees grow close and the night hums around you. The mess hall, the cabins, the lake, they all seem to fade behind you, as if the camp itself is exhaling. You take one last look over your shoulder, and just for a second, you think you see movement. But when you blink, it's gone. Camp Evergreen falls silent once more, waiting for the next storyteller to find their way back. If you'd like to play here too, I'm going to put it on the gallery. I'll call it Haunted Summer Camp, and you can also find all of my creations by searching for the hashtag SimsBuildsChill. If you'd like to wander deeper into the world of magic and stories, the Haunted Cottage awaits. Click here to uncover its secrets next.